Hello everyone, my name is EposVox and welcome to my tutorial on setting up the Game Capture HD software for your Elgato Game Capture HD capture card. There's a few nooks and crannies about it that if you don't optimize correctly, you're not going to end up with all that great results in your videos. And so I'm hoping I can clear up a few things and make sure you guys get the most optimal videos from your software and capture card. Obviously, to download the software, you would go to gamecapture.com, click the download button, choose your operating system. Most of you, including myself, are going to be running on Windows 8 for myself. I already have it installed, but I have a beta version installed that I'm not going to be covering right now. I will cover what it contains in a later video. Run your installer. It's going to come up with your space requirements. Click Next, Accept, Next. Double check your install location. If you wish to install it elsewhere, this is where you would do it. Next, and install. It may pop up a user access control warning if your Windows settings are set for that, saying, hey, do you want to do this? Just click OK. It's not going to let me install it because I already have the newer version, so I'm just going to click OK. And then when it finishes installing, you'll just click Finish. And go ahead and open your Game Capture HD software. Your window is going to look very much like this. I do have the beta sticker in here and a couple features you're not going to have, but 99.9% of this is going to look exactly the same as yours. Now we're going to make sure we're on the Capture tab, but we're not going to mess with any of this just yet. First, you'll see two icons in this corner. One is information that you can click on to find tutorials, check for updates, things like that. We're going to worry about this little gear icon, which is pretty universal for settings. So here's your primary options you're going to want to look at. Flashback recording. This is one of the things that a lot of people actually bought Game Capture HDs for, which is that if you leave the software up and in capture mode, it will basically keep recording the entire time you're playing a game. And so you'll be able to, if I go back here, you'll be able to actually go back in time and choose an earlier point to start recording from. So if you don't want to record a whole match and you're sitting there playing, but then you got an awesome clip right before you died, you can jump back and tell it to record from, say, 10 minutes ago forward and save that clip anyway. Pretty cool feature. Up here is going to be your save location. You're not going to have this commentary feature. You're just going to have the save location. I have mine set to a 2 by 2 terabyte RAID 0 recording RAID. This is basically 2 terabytes working together as one for a faster recording setup. If you, which most of you probably don't, if you don't have that, you're simply going to want to select a hard drive. Now, as I talk about in my streaming videos, you really want a secondary hard drive to record to. If you're on a laptop especially, but even on a desktop, recording to your C drive, your default hard drive that's in your computer, that your operating system and programs run from, will eventually kill your hard drive most likely. Now there's going to be a lot of people who want to argue with me on that point, but having worked in a tech department of a retail store where I get to see lots of kids bring in their sad little laptops that could not handle recording with basically Elgatos. I've actually got a few people who recorded with Elgato giving me their Black Ops clips on their hard drive and things like that. It's not a good idea. Laptops specifically, their read-write heads are not made for that amount of data going across it, and the hard drives themselves are really cheap and really slow. And so if it's anything like my laptop, it's not even actually going to be able to keep up with the recording. So you're going to want to get yourself a nice, fast USB 3 external drive, or if you're on a desktop, get yourself another internal hard drive, install it. The install process is very simple. You can get them for pretty cheap, cheaper than you actually paid for the capture card itself. And you're just going to want to choose a place on it. So I just chose my drive, and then I made a Elgato folder, and then it'll make its own folder in there, but that's fine. Just hit select. Let's go over here to sharing. Now sharing, these options are what you're going to see in the edit tab over here. So if I go to the edit tab, you have a share tab at the bottom here. These are the options that you see there. So if we go to it, you can, hide options that you don't normally use. I'm never really going to specifically render out a video from Elgato software to go to Facebook, Twitter, email, Apple TV, iPad, iPhone, or Movie Maker. That's just not going to happen. I may at some point experiment more with the YouTube feature. and I do regularly use MP4 original and MP4 1080p. So I leave those checked. You can leave it all by default, and that's perfectly fine. I just got rid of them to get them out of my way. You can also tell it to always convert new videos to a specific format. If you just always want it to convert to a format that you can edit as soon as you're done recording, that'll be a really convenient step for you. I don't always want to convert and use my videos after I record, so I have it unchecked, but you can choose either MP4 original or 1080p to do so if you like. Again, you're not going to have the live commentary features here, so don't worry about that. You can make sure that it uses 1080p for iPad and Apple TV if you use that. Not entirely sure who's rendering out their gameplay videos for Apple TV and iPad, but hey, whatever floats your boat. Clicking the update tab, all you have is automatically check for updates. There's honestly no reason not to have this checked unless you specifically want a beta feature that they're getting rid of. But most of the time you want the most up-to-date version of software. We're done with that window. We're almost pretty much done. Again, staying in the Capture tab, under Device, this is where you're going to want to start changing things. So you click the little cross icons here, and you have a lot more tabs. Now I'm actually going to turn on my PS3. Actually, it's set to components, so that's actually my PS2. So we are going to set it to other HDMI expanded 1080p, and then I'm going to turn on my PlayStation 3. Now basically your options here, input device, that's obviously what you're sending in to the Elgato. So you have a few different options. You have the Xbox One, the Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, iPad, iPod, iPhone Touch, or whatever, Wii U, and then other. I primarily use other because I actually have everything hooked up to a selector switch before it reaches my Elgato, but you know, you can customize that specifically to your liking. Now PlayStation 3 by default is going to be your component connection because technically PS3 does not support HDMI recording. I have a way around that I use, so I do use HDMI for it. However, you're most likely not going to. So then your input, if you're on other, you have a bunch of different options. You can use composite or S-video for retro consoles. You would put the yellow AV composite jack into, I want to say the red. Into the red component connector on the Elgato analog adapter. And then the red and white where they go. And then component's going to be for like your PS3, or some people use it for Xbox. HDMI is your pretty much standard. I use expanded HDMI color range, it just makes it look prettier. And then you have a few options for profile. Now, for most people, there's only two options you're going to choose from, HD 720 or HD 1080p. You can choose mobile or standard definition if you're recording your videos for really low resolution purposes, but on the whole, there's not really a whole lot reason to do so. Now, should you choose HD 720 or 1080p? You have a few different reasons you would choose one or the other. If you're specifically, if you're working on a low-end PC, you're not even sure, you're not sure if it'll be able to handle recording a whole lot. You don't plan on editing videos in 1080p, like you're not super worried about it. 720p is going to save you disk space. It's going to save you time and energy and make the whole process a bit more smoother. If you are on a computer that's powerful enough to handle recording at 1080p, and even if you're making 720p videos, you at least want them to look as well as you can, then you're gonna wanna send it to 1080p. I use 1080p for everything, even if you're recording something like, here, let me click OK. It's not recognizing my PS3 because my input's on the wrong input. But I can change that. There we go. So you see that my PS3 menu up here under Elgato Game Capture HD, it tells me that it's a 1080p signal. 1920 by 1080 at 59.94 frames per second, and it's going to record to a 1920 by 1080 29.97 frames per second file. Well, most often, especially on PS3, the game you're actually going to be playing is only going to run in 720p. That happens on Xbox too, but more often than not, it's on PS3. So even though you have 1080 selected, it's still going to save to a 720p file and keep things as natural as possible, which is really convenient. If you're dealing with retro or older consoles or standard definition inputs, these settings you will just kind of have to play around with. Sometimes, like for my PS2 for instance, having certain ones on will make it not work. Like actually having preserve source format on will actually not work for PS2 for me. But it also won't work if I don't have standard definition input. Your results are totally going to vary for this. Crop to reduce size, I don't know if you could see over here. I'll check it, uncheck it. It zooms it in for the most part. Every once in a while you'll have a game or a console that actually has a black box around it. It's supposed to compensate for that. In my experience, for the most part, it doesn't actually help. It just makes things worse. Preserve source format is if you really want it to be as natural as possible. So for example, coming from the PS2, actually I'll set up a real example for this. Hang on. Let me set it to component. Click OK. Turn off PS3, turn on the PS2. And I will show you what I mean. Alright. So my PS2 is loading here, and you can see it has the input resolution coming from the PS2 is 720 by 480 at 60 frames a second interlaced. All component composite signals are all interlaced, and your TV does the de-interlacing for you. But if you record a digital file like you would from this software to interlace, you're going to notice a bunch of lines going across the screen whenever there's motion. That's interlacing. Basically what that does is allow the console to deliver 60 frames a second while only really having to deliver 30 of those frames per second. And your TV your TV compensates for it, and it all works out in the end. That doesn't work when you're capturing the digital files, however. So what you can select if you uncheck preserve source format is it'll render to what's a digital 480p video, 640 by 480 at 29.9 frames per second progressive, which completely gets rid of those lines. It does really good job at de-interlacing and looks really, really good. If for whatever reason you want it as completely natural as possible, you can check that box. It'll take a second to reload, and it will give you a 720 by 480 interlaced video. It'll get you that 60 frames a second, but you're still going to have to de-interlace it and lose those frames anyway. So unless you're just specifically going after a specific, video type, there's no reason to do that. Switching back over to the PS3 here through HDMI audio or video, and of course this would be the exact same setup for an Xbox One, PS4, or Xbox 360, or even a PC or Mac, or any sort of computer going in through HDMI at 1080p. The last setting on this tab I want to look at is the quality tab. You have a couple silly options. You have good, better, or best, and a bunch of ticks in between them. Basically all that determines, and you can check up here in this details box, is your bitrate. So if we drag it all the way down to good, your video file is going to be an 8 megabyte per second video file and 224 kilobyte per second audio file. Drag it all the way back up to best, it's going to be a 30 megabyte per second video file. If you're really low on disk space, or your computer's having trouble keeping up writing as much data as you're trying to, or what have you, and you're not concerned about having the best quality, you can lower it and play with it, and it's going to lower your bitrate and save you disk space, save you rendering time, to save you, hard drives, whatever. It's there to save disk space. However, if you're wanting, basically the rule to making high quality, as far as picture quality videos goes, is you need the best quality input video to make a decent quality output video because of how much compression is done on YouTube. So since I have the capability to handle it, 30 megabytes per second, boom, done. Moving on to the picture tab. You can play with the brightness, contrast, hue, and saturation if you'd like. I know a lot of people, especially recording Call of Duty, like to turn up the saturation in their video and really saturate it up and make it look nice and colorful. Obviously, I just turned it all the way up just for effect. I personally leave it completely alone. It honestly does a good job to do that in hardware on the capture card versus doing it in editing, but I would much rather have the default video signal and change it how I want in editing than change it on the capture card and then have it not look like I want in editing. but those options are available to you. You can adjust your audio gain for your console's audio coming in and out. I keep mine at 0. Sometimes you need to turn it down because your console is just kind of clipping out for no reason, or you can turn it up if it's just way too quiet for another reason. This will primarily be important on analog audio, hence that's why it says analog audio. It does kind of apply to HDMI audio sometimes, depending on how you have it set up. Profiles, you can change profiles and customize them, and have different ones set up for, say, Xbox or PS3 or whatever. I frankly use the same profile for everything, so I don't really use them, but they may be convenient for you if you're switching around a lot. TV compatibility. If your screen's not showing up and you're 100% sure nothing's hooked up wrong, then adjust this number and see if it changes from black to the right sign for you. If not, I suggest posting in the troubleshooting forums on Elgato's website at GameCaptureHD.com and ask them. I am not a tech support agent. I will not be able to help you, but this is something you can play around with to help solve your problem. So we're done with these settings. Click OK and you're good to go. We still have quite a few tabs to go, but we're almost there. Game audio. This is where you adjust your just master, you had the analog audio gain, but this is where you adjust software level, your sound. I keep it at 0 dB, you can adjust it, turn it down. In the current state where they have not implemented live commentary features for separate audio tracks, everything records to the same audio file. You're going to want to play around with these a lot, and each person's settings are going to be different. So for example, to get a live commentary recorded where the game volume's not overpowering you, you're going to need to crank down your game volume, obviously turn on your microphone, tell it to automatically reduce game sound to help you out, and adjust your mic volume. How much you need to adjust it and in which combination you need to do and all that, again, it's totally going to depend on the person. And then you can see my voice being routed through the delay on the game audio there. Audio input, choose your correct microphone. Mine is this one. I also have lots more plugged in, and you can choose whichever one you want. You can also adjust the threshold to which it reduces your game sound, but in most cases the default will be perfectly fine. I'm going to turn that back off now. You do have to have this button checked for live commentary to be recorded, otherwise it won't record your live commentary. Live streaming. You can set up your live streaming account. You have Twitch, Ustream, YouTube, or a custom RTMP server. It's relatively simple process. We'll set up Twitch, set up your login. I don't even know that I know my password, to be honest. Once you're logged in, that's all you gotta do. It'll automatically select the server, or if you want to select a specific one, you can choose it. Title your stream, adjust your bitrate. In order to determine your bitrate, you're gonna want to go to speedtest.net. Run a speed test, click begin test, and I get these comments all the time in my stream tutorials. I'm just going to say it now. No, if you link me or tell me your download and upload speed, I'm not going to tell you a speed to choose in your Elgato software. I'm just not. It's not going to happen. Download speed is not really all that relevant to streaming, although if you have a really low download speed, also a really low upload speed, you're not going to have a lot of fun streaming. And that upload speed is easily double what I normally have, so that's actually really impressive. I'm usually around 2.5 upload, but I will certainly take it. So since it's saying I have 4.52, I can crank it all the way up to, say, I'll do a 3 megabyte per second 720p stream. It automatically determines the resolution based on your bitrate, although you can tell it to change your maximum resolution. 720p is really all you need for streaming, especially if you don't have a great internet connection. And then click the live stream button to begin live streaming. In the tags file, this is what's going to determine your file name as well as the game choice in your stream. So game is going to affect your game choice in your stream. Video title is just going to be a file title. You can add descriptions and tags if you like. I don't really have a use for them because I delete them as soon as I'm done using them. And that's about it. Okay. We only have a couple more things to cover. Record, big ol' red record button. That's how you record. Gee. Oh, here it tells you how long it's been just kind of recording the stream. So again, this plays into the flashback. It has 7 minutes and 30 seconds of back buffer recorded. So I can jump back in time tell it to record the last 5 minutes, or, you know, play around, do whatever. When you're done playing around and you want it to go back to the most recent, you know, till right now, just click live. It's going to reset it back to live, not lose that back buffer at all. This little speaker icon basically plays your stream back through your speakers. Some people may want this. I personally want it disabled, especially since there's a like 3-second delay going through it. I always keep it muted. This camera icon is of course where you take screenshots of your video. Then you have rewind and fast forward and pause. You can pause to take a screenshot buttons. Typical, you know, recording and playback controls. Last tab of the video, edit. Yeah. This is going to group your videos by game, which is why that game title is important. If you just name them My Great Game, it's not going to be useful. You can see I have dead or alive videos. Then you can choose your video. If you have a lot, you can search from them. If you need to delete one, you can hit the delete button. And it'll ask you, are you sure you want to delete this? And you can hit yes. When you click on a video, it's going to load up your preview. It's going to have a timeline showing your video at various points. That bra is really showing through that tank top. I don't like that. And then down here is your share buttons. You can share it to YouTube. It'll automatically upload it. It'll have you log in and stuff. You can render it to an MP4 at original. So this is what you're going to need for sub 1080p videos. And then MP4 1080p for 1080p videos. In the timeline, you can make edits. You can click this information tab and change the name of the video, the game title, the game level, all the metadata you want. Set a thumbnail, which is only ever going to show in this program. So again, not all that necessary unless you're only using this software as your only editing software. Some people do it, not me. It'll just show the title down here by default. You've got skip around controls, playback controls. It'll show your current time slot. You can adjust playback volume. It's got the scissors icon to snip out certain clips and then just kind of delete the rest, edit up your video. It's a very minimal but often useful video editor for those just doing stuff with regular gameplay. And then when you're satisfied with your clip, you can render it out. I am not, and so I'm going to hit Control Z a few times, which does work in here, and get my clip back up to full speed. When you do tell it to render a video by clicking one of the share buttons, it'll prop up right here a status option to tell you how your video render is going. You can cancel by clicking the X, and you can clear them out by clicking clear. So, in a nutshell, this is the Elgato Game Capture HD software. Hopefully this video has helped you to figure out how to set it up and configure it optimally for your setup. Again, if you have any issues with specific features, be sure to contact Elgato through Elgato Support or Elgato Gaming on Twitter or their support site on their website. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. This video was made possible by contributions to our Patreon campaign by viewers like you. Thank you.